So as we always do, Keith, when we knew you were coming on the show, we put out a call on our social media to our followers to get some audience questions. And we have a few for you here. So I'm going to start off with the first one. Ellen Duree asks, can you describe your most unexpected photo moment in nature?
I mean, there's those moments where you're out actively looking for animals, and then there's those moments where you just are simply surprised to see one. And I would say that would be more of the idea here for me, was when you're out there and you stumble upon something. Like I think it was last year during the pandemic, I was out just riding my bike, and a friend of mine texted me, and he's like, hey, in your neighborhood, I don't know where he got this information. It was on just some local website, but there was a mountain lion in a tree like 2 blocks from my house. And that to me was this very, very, I mean, they are in the Boulder area where I live, but I immediately just dropped everything, went home, grabbed my camera, pedaled over there, and sure enough, this mountain lion napped in this tree for, I want to say it was like 8 to 10 hours. Like most of the city got to actually go witness and see a mountain lion, because it just kind of went like locally viral in a lot of ways. And that to me that probably ticks that box, because for this particular question here, it was, I don't know if that's, I mean, maybe that half answers the question, because an unexpected wildlife encounter would be being on a hike and then seeing a bobcat or something. And those things have happened, but this was special because the information came in and I got to just go spend hours just staring at this thing. Not too far away. It could not have been more unconcerned that there was just a crowd of people down there like watching it nap.
That reminds me of David Lindo. Sorry, that reminds me of David Lindo. Remember this from our previous episode, Diego? He was like a
puma in a previous life.
A puma in a previous life. Maybe he was the puma chilling in Boulder, Colorado, asleep in a tree.
Never know. We have another question from the audience. Are you single? Line, that's not the question. No, actually, the real question is from Danielle, that is a friend that has been living and guiding in the Llanos. Did you like the Colombian Llanos? Like, did you enjoy the animals and the mammals and the bird life in this savanna that we share with Venezuela?
Absolutely. And I think it was Danielle I think I was with him down when we were photographing the Janeros, if it's the same Danielle.
Yeah.
Great guy,
in
by
the camp,
way.
Yeah, that same Danielle.
Yes. Oh, I loved it. I mean, you know what was interesting? When we were in that area, I had no idea that Colombia even had a landscape like that. And again, it's my ignorance on the geography of Colombia. Colombia is a gigantic country. But the diversity of Colombia, I think when most people that aren't from Colombia, and I could be incorrect here, think Colombia, they probably think it's going to be jungly, it's going to be probably mountainous. This truly felt like I was in Africa. And I would say the same about Camarones. You felt like you weren't in the country anymore, that you'd left there. And getting to see, I mean, we got to see a giant anteater together, which was extraordinary. Capybara all over the place. It was a place prevalent with jaguar. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see a jaguar or a puma on that trip, but they are very common in that part of Colombia. And the wetlands were incredible. That was a very, very I'm dying to get back to that area, actually. I want to bring my wife down there so she can experience that.
Absolutely.
It's very special. Yeah.
Diego knows well. That's my favorite region in Colombia. Diego knows
I was going to say that's your favorite area. And everyone watching can, the Birders documentary has short documentaries that are regional. There is one for the Llanos, and everyone can watch it and drool about it.
I watched it, and it brought me back to that place. I got to get back down there someday. That place was amazing.
I think that place kind of clicks perfectly with my kind of dual identity as a birder, like raised birding in wetlands and marshes and coasts in England, loving ducks and wading birds, and then transplanted to Colombia where it's all tanagers and tyrant flycatchers and little birds in the canopy. It kind of, Casanare, the eastern region of Colombia, just kind of brings me back to those birding roots, but with way cooler birds, with all due respect to European wildfowl. Just mind-blowing part of the world. I love it. And the final audience question we have comes from Geared to Travel on Instagram. That's the username. Best bird flight takeoff memory.
I don't know. It's hard to say. You know what's fun to photograph, and usually kind of one of the more forgiving things if you're ready, is photographing like cormorants or flamingos, things that have to like generate enough speed where they're running across the water, you get a really beautiful opportunity to get an explosive moment because you have water that's splashing up. So I would probably be a flamingo. I actually sent you guys one of these photos if you wanted to show it, but it was a flamingo running across the water, and this was in Argentina across one of those like volcanic lakes where the flamingos have plenty of little shrimp to feed on, and it's hard to get in a position where the birds don't take off. You really have to work on getting close enough to sort of find the moment. But I would say it might have even been that flamingo moment, just watching when you get like a perfect morning where it's kind of mirrored reflection and you get to watch a flock of birds just take off. That does it for me. I love that.
What would be yours, Diego?
I never, and I'm probably a little bit biased because, actually after we filmed the birders, I've paid more attention to base jump. Because like the Cardinal Guajiro, like they're just sitting there and suddenly they base jump and disappear. So I that kind of, sudden, I'm not in the frame anymore. I just love it. So probably, Cardinal Guajiro base jumping is one of my favorite ones.
I love when they do that. When they jump and their wings are still in. They haven't opened up yet, and it's incredible. Yep, it's so cool.
I'm not really sure what mine would be. I mean, I think I have to go with something kind of big and dramatic. But when I went to a Harpy Eagle nest a few years ago in Caquetá in Colombia, and the male had come in with a parrot, a kill for the chick, and fed the chick and everything, and perched up in the tree. And it was perched up there for a few hours, and we were just sitting there watching it. And at one point, there was a turkey vulture that kept circling ever closer to the nest. And the turkey vulture's, a scavenger. It's unlikely to cause any problems for the chick unless it's coming to maybe steal some of the dead prey or something. But the male eagle just did a huge swoop around and just fanned its wings open and just bombed this turkey vulture as it flew past the tree. That was pretty cool. So in terms of, I've never really thought about best bird flight takeoff, but that's got to be number one. Harpy Eagle, that's a pretty
I like this audience question. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's a good one. You know what a classic bird to watch, and this is very much a takeoff moment, but it's also a landing moment, is watching the bee eaters hunt. You know how you watch when they just jump off and they'll do these big circles and they'll just, they often land right where they took off. And it's funny because it happens so quick. They'll take off and they'll come back and all of a sudden there's something in their beak. And what's funny is, as a photographer, when you're either if you're filming or shooting photos of it, you just lock the lens off right on that perch with the anticipation that they're going to come and go from that area. And oftentimes you're lucky and they'll do it a dozen times for you. And when you're looking at it in the lens, it's funny because they leave and all of a sudden they're back, but now there's like a dragonfly in the beak and you're like, wow, And, but when you pull away from the lens and you get to watch how beautifully they arc their wings and make those incredible moments and getting food out of the sky with incredible, unspeakable accuracy. Birds that hunt in the air are just on another level. The flycatchers, you just got to hand it to them. It's like, what's going on in their brain that can process that many decisions and that level of accuracy in no time at all? They're extraordinary.
Yeah. I really love watching here, like we have the jacamars, which are kind of our equivalent of the bee eaters here in South America. And if you get like a scope, like sort of Diego's got something onto a bird like that, for me, it's not so much the flight, although that's amazing. They make these tiny micro movements of their heads, and if you get a really good view of them, you can watch them, and they're watching the birds. I'm kind of trying to imitate it now, but it's incredible. You get really close up and you see these tiny little adjustments and movements they're doing, just scanning the sky. It's quite remarkable to watch up close.
Wow.
When I was a kid, I remember with puffbirds, they would be perching on a wire and you would throw just a rock to the sky and let it come down again. And the puffbirds are all the time like, whoa, what is that? And like looking like, oh, is that food? They are paying attention to every minor detail.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Kingfishers too. I gotta hand it to kingfishers too. It's wild because they'll be sitting on something that's moving because it's like a small reed or something. And I read about this, and you probably know all about this. Their head, they have a stabilization in their head.
Stationary, yeah.
It's insane to be able to see into the water and to be able to pull out like the tiniest fish with perfect accuracy.
Well, it kind of explains a little bit also why your favourite local bird is the American kestrel, because they're kind of a similar bird but on land, right? The same sort of fluttering flight, the same head stabilization, the same ability to pick out some tiny animal from miles up in the air.
It's crazy. Yeah, they do kind of have that flushing technique. You know what else I love is the harrier hawk. Those birds that fly over the landscape low and basically try to scare rodents and things. And just watching the way they fly too is incredible. There's so many birds that I get in the air. Like, we get harrier hawks here. I've never gotten close enough to get a good shot of one. They're always way out in the distance, and I try to get in close. It's not going to happen. That's like a local bucket list bird for me, is to get like a good photo of one of those.
Do you actually have a nemesis bird, one you've tried to see several times but you are not lucky and try to photograph, like a nemesis photograph bird?
That's a good question. The harrier might be that bird for me, because I just have never, I see them in certain seasons because they kind of migrate in and out, and but every time I've actually gotten to see one, they're so far away.
Boom.
Yeah, they're not having it.
Neat.
Those are kind of tricky birds as well, because they're open space birds, right? So by definition, anytime you try and approach them, you're really visible.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and their eyesight is just unbelievable too. And I don't know enough about them. There might be certain hot spots where you can go and have better opportunities to see them. I mean, even here in Colorado where I live, a snowy egret's a huge challenge. You just don't get that many of them, and when you do, but you can go to like Florida, and you're swatting them away. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all about like location when it comes to documentation. It would be fun to find if there is an area where harriers nest, and where places that you might increase your chances of actually getting to watch, to document those encounters would be pretty cool.